Hello YouTube, this is Asatsu5 and I thought I'd make a video talking about knife law misconceptions in Texas because I've talked to people who really don't have that big of a clue of what's legal in Texas, even though the penal code is written out in black and white. There's a little bit of confusion, but this is it. First off, you can carry anything in Texas as long as it's 5.5 inches or smaller, not double-edged, and not designed to cut or stab while being thrown. So you can carry balisongs, you can carry switchblades, OTFs from the side. You can carry fixed blades, so 5.5 inches or smaller. Those are the criteria. Now, the confusion started with this last comment that I had saying he was calling out Lynn Thompson because Lynn Thompson said that he loves Texas and that's why he makes knives especially for Texas and Texas knife laws. And he was calling BS. He was like, well, why don't you make more Texas legal folding knives? And I left a comment and I was like, hey, you know, he caters to Texas very specifically because he offers all these 5.5 inch folding knives, and I listed a few, the Voyager, the Espadas, which are my favorite, and then he said, you fool, those are illegal, and I said, no, they're not, and he's like, read the penal code, man, you can't legally carry buoys. This is where the confusion is. And I told him, I've read the penal code not only because I'm a knife hobbyist, I like to carry knives, I like to know what I can legally carry, but also because I studied it in college. I had the physical penal code book. I didn't look it up on the internet. I had the book and I read it for a grade. Not the whole thing, but I had to look stuff up and reference certain things for a grade. So I'm very familiar with the penal code book. It is not the one that I owned, I sold, but it's now out of date. It's not current, and it's not knife laws. And I said, true, you can't legally carry double-edged daggers, darks, or buoys. But you also got to keep in mind that the bowie knife is not defined in the penal code, and that bowie knives can be any shape or size you want them to be. They can be, they can technically be drop points. They can be spear points. They can be clip points. And his argument with like the Voyager and the Espada is that they were clip points, and clip points made them buoys because buoys, for some reason, automatically, if it's a clip point, it must be a buoy, which is not true. But the term bowie knife is very vague, and I'll get into that later. But yes, it doesn't define bowie knife in the law book, or the penal code. But only if you just are extremely rude to a police officer, they might say that you have a bowie knife. But really what they mean by bowie knife is a knife that's bigger than 5.5 inches, which is stated in the penal code. You also got to remember you can carry something that's over 5.5 inches if you're doing illegal activity. Let's just say you're scuba diving, you're camping, you're hunting, you're fishing. You can have these large butcher type knives on you if you're doing illegal activity. And you can't say, well, I'm camping or I'm fishing and be in the mall. But if you're doing illegal activity, you can have certain knives that you generally won't be able to have. But yes, in general, when it comes down to it, bowie knife is a knife that's over 5.5 inches. But bowie knives historically could be anywhere from 4 inches all the way up to over 20 inches. They can be clip point, they can be spear point, they can be drop point. They can actually be daggers. So it's there's some confusion on what is the Arkansas toothpick, because Arkansas toothpick refers to a bowie knife and it refers to a very heavy dagger that's sharpened fully on both sides. It's not just a false edge, it is literally a thrusting dagger, but it's heavy. Um, it's not necessarily a paring or left-handed dagger, um, and it's pretty massive. So a Bowie knife or Arkansas toothpick can be a full-blown dagger. It can be a spear point. It can be a knife that is plain on one side and serrated on the other. The term Bowie knife is so vague that even the experts can't really define it. It's just shrouded in legend. It's an enigma. It is truly an enigma in every sense of the word. It's a puzzle. It's shrouded by legend and history. So you can't really go by the fact that they say Bowie knives are banned, because what is a Bowie knife? No one knows. That's the cool thing about Bowie knives. That's why the people of the ABS Bladesmith Society, American Bladesmith Society, they love making Bowies, because they're not bound by what particulars. They're not bound by that a Bowie has to have this, a Bowie has to have a guard, a Bowie has to be clip point, a Bowie has to have a coffin shape. They're not bound by that stuff. They can make something that is truly unique to them, and it's still a Bowie knife. It's still Americana. It's still something that would have been carried back in the 19th century. It would be very familiar to something that would have been carried in the 19th century. Jim Bowie, Davy Crockett, the people in New Orleans, Arkansas, Texas, California, Tennessee, they would all recognize these Bowie knives that are being made by the American Bladesmith Society. They would recognize them as fighting self-defense knives that would probably be called a Bowie knife, but yet they're complete. There's a complete uniqueness to them, to the makers that are making them right now. They're not bound by history or a design. If you make a left-handed dagger, or if you make a Italian stiletto, or if you make a Scottish dirk as a bladesmith or American bladesmith, ABS certified one, there's certain rules you kind of have to go by. If you make a Quillian dagger, it has to meet certain criteria to be what you call it, or what you're calling it. But with a Bowie knife, you're only limited by your imagination. There's also this misconception that a knife can't be longer than your palm. That, you know, let's see, I'm filming on my phone. People will often do this, lay the blade across their palm, and if it's longer than the palm, they'll say that's illegal. I've called someone out on that and said, the legal blade length is 5.5 inches, and they say, well, the length across your palm is 5.5 inches. Yeah, if you're a giant, but you can't use your palm as a measuring tool for a knife that's legal, because everybody has different sized hands. That's why gloves come in small, medium, large, sometimes extra large if you're Brock Lesnar or Andre the Giant. But yes, all of our palms are different. So you can't lay that across, the blade across your palm to see if it's legal. I had a teacher in high school that did that. They got my Recon 1, Cold Steel Recon 1, the vintage one, and they laid it across the palm and said, hey, this is too big, you can't carry it, I don't want to see it at school again. And I just didn't pull it out in front of that teacher again. He allowed certain knives. He had no problems with your traditional knives and stuff, but if it was too scary looking, he didn't like it. So I brought a non-threatening knife to school to use in front of him, but I also carried a self-defense knife that I didn't pull out just willy-nilly. Yeah, I had a teacher do that. But I respected his opinion to a certain extent, because, you know, that might have been his criteria for what was okay to bring to school. He wasn't claiming that it was law like some people, but it was his standard for what people can bring to school. So, yes, don't use your palm as a measuring tool for legal knives in Texas. And that's basically it. Back when switchblades were illegal, I had a kid bring a switchblade to school, and it was out the side, not out the front. And I said, hey, that's illegal. You can get in trouble for that. And he's like, no, it's out the side. It's only illegal if it comes out the front. I said, no. And keep in mind, this was before 2008 or whatever. I said it's illegal to carry any switchblade that when you push a button or use gravity opens the knife. It doesn't matter if it comes out the front. It doesn't make a difference to the law if it comes out the front or the side. They're both banned. Yeah. He didn't believe me, but we had a school police officer. I said, go up to him and show him your knife and tell me if he thinks it's legal or not. And he never did it. So, what else? Are there any misconceptions? Can't legally carry shurikens because they're designed to cut or stab while being thrown. But I'm curious if I can legally carry a ice pick. Ice pick is not double-edged. It's not designed to be thrown, but I could throw an ice pick pretty well back in the day. And plus, ice picks stab relatively well, but they won't have a big wound channel. But they are hard to stitch up. So I wonder if I carried a ice pick, if that would be frowned upon. I guess it depends on the police officer. Kids can also carry a handgun when hunting. If they're hunting with a handgun, they can carry it. It's no different than a 12-year-old carrying a long gun and hunting with it. You know, when you're 12 years old, you can't legally buy a handgun or a long gun. But if you're hunting, doing a legal activity, you can carry a long gun or a handgun to hunt with. So that's another shady area for some folks. But I talked to game wardens about it, and that's what they told me. So that's it. I'm a Satsu 5. I hope y'all have a great day. I am out.